This conference will now be recorded.
We have at least 7 to 10 cleaning people that help facilitate all the cleans in all the houses. So that's definitely an income for the community. We bring a lot of guests from out of state that come into town to spend money in Tippecanoe County. I always try to bend over backwards to respect the neighbors, and if they have a problem, they know they can call me any time of the day, any time of the night, and I immediately fix any issues if there is any. Definitely not here to make any enemies in the neighborhood, but I also am here to, the house is zoned in a fashion that I legally am allowed to do it up to 60 times a year, and then I can rent it out long-term in between that. That's just according to the zoning office. So all I was asking to do was not have a limit to the 60, would just extend it to unlimited amounts of stays. And that's really all I was trying to do. Good?
You know where the noise is coming from? It's probably Jen. It doesn't sound like it.
Muted. It's
I mean-
whoever CEO is.
Okay. Anything else?
Not at this time,
Okay, we may have some questions for you later.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? Please come forward.
We also have 2 letters in opposition.
Let's go ahead and hear the letters first,
Okay.
please. That way we know the names.
Okay. The first letter is a petition from the Albemarle Homeowners Association Board. It reads, Dear board members, we have been made aware of the special exception which was requested by Mr. Casey Giles for a property in our association group to allow it to be used as a transient guest house. The property is located at 7342 Albemarle Drive East. As duly elected board members of the Albemarle Homeowners Association, we oppose this request. Attached to this letter, please find a petition opposing this request for exception with signatures from a vast majority of the property owners in our neighborhood. We ask that you deny Mr. Giles' request sincerely, and then there are 19 signatories. I'd be happy to pass it around.
Okay. And does that prevent anybody from speaking?
No.
No?
Does not.
Okay.
We have 2 additional letters. They're both the same copy, presumably by the same household, same address. Appears to be a husband-wife duo, but they both signed separately this same letter. So I'll just read one of the copies. This is this letter is from Suzanne and Thomas McConville of 7402 Albemarle East, West Lafayette. To whom it may concern, the purpose of our letter is to object to the proposed special exception from the Unified Zoning Ordinance of Tippecanoe County. Property involved in the proposed request is at 7342 Albemarle East, West Lafayette. I am in opposition to this for the following reasons. The neighborhood is made up of single-family residents, some retired, like my husband and I, and many young families with children. Being a dead-end lane, residents enjoy walking on Albemarle East and allowing their children to ride bikes. To turn one house into a transient guest house would bring in strangers, excessive traffic, and a noise level uncommon and unwelcome to the houses nearby, which includes mine. While some areas of the county and the world may seem to benefit from Airbnbs by bringing in more tourists, others are banning them. According to the Guardian News and Media Group, quote, many cities have begun to introduce new rules after residents complained about being overwhelmed by weekend visitors, banging wheelie bags up chairs, breaching building security rules, and loud parties. Pressure has also come from hotel groups and local politicians who have lost revenue from hotel taxes, end quote. The growing number of cities which have banned or placed restrictions on Airbnbs include New York, San Francisco, Santa Monica, Singapore, Berlin, Charleston, Jersey City, Barcelona, Miami Beach, Los Angeles, Amsterdam, and Thailand. My husband and I bought our home less than 2 years ago after we retired. We were attracted to the quiet, peaceful setting in the neighborhood. I would never have purchased the property if it were next door to a transient guest house. Please do not grant the special exception. My humble opinion, this location is not appropriate for this kind of rental. Our neighborhood is small, and neighbors know and watch out for each other. To allow so many strangers to frequent the neighborhood would destroy the privacy, closeness, and safety already present and have a negative effect on our property values. Sincerely.
Thank you. And now, sir, if you'd please come up, and thank you for waiting.
My pleasure. Thank you. So, good evening. In the interest of avoiding repeating the number of comments, so
Could you state your name and address for the record,
I
please?
apologize. My name is Thomas Pimler. I live at 7442 Albemarle East. And I'm here tonight both as a longtime homeowner and also president of the Homeowners Association. We've already presented a variety of materials showing the unanimous opposition of the lot owners in Albemarle against this exception request.
While everyone in the neighborhood was interested in being here tonight, we weren't sure of the format of the meeting, and so we tried to summarize, not only because of uncertainty about the format of the meeting, but also in the interest of time, the comments and some written statements. Albemarle was designed as a quiet, rural neighborhood, and our neighbors range all ages, from young families with small children to retirees and also families with special needs. As a simple census, Albemarle East has 17 homes with roughly 30 adults and approximately 15 children. Most of the children happen to live between the entrance of the neighborhood and the petitioner's property. We have similar concerns as raised in the APC staff report. Transient use of the house will cause additional traffic as well as noise and safety issues to the other neighbors. However, rather than will cause, I should say is causing, because the petitioner began using the property as a transient guest house immediately after closing on the property. So, to our concerns. First, people who rent the type of house as the petitioners for a weekend typically do so for festive purposes, gatherings for fun and fellowship. They should reasonably be able to expect to use the property accordingly. But that also means music and outside activities, as well as people coming and going at any hour they wish. On this point, we disagree with the staff report. 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation is not the same, or would not be the same as other residences. Transient guests coming and going at any hour are atypical of regular residential use, and it does increase noise and nuisance issues. In fact, during the weekend since Mr. Giles has owned this property, we've already received complaints about these very issues. Second, the general increase in the number of transient guests in the neighborhood presents various safety concerns and is also inconsistent with the character of the neighborhood. The regular cycling of new transient guests through the neighborhood, whether well-intentioned or not, disrupts the quiet enjoyment the other neighbors have of their properties. If some of the guests are ill-intentioned, it can also lead to other safety or crime concerns. The resulting higher traffic levels impact the wear and tear on our private roads, which become not only another safety issue, but also a financial burden for the rest of the neighbors. Consistent with the quiet nature of the neighborhood, the roads were designed and built for limited use. Since we do not have through streets, traffic is limited to that connected to the neighborhood itself. In the 20 years since my family has lived in Albemarle, there has not been one single accident involving two vehicles that were both from the neighborhood. Having the vast majority of the traffic coming from people familiar with the roadway and area is a big part of why it's been safe. Third, we disagree with the APC staff's suggestion that these concerns could be mitigated by limiting the number of transient guests to 8 at a time. A gathering of 5 people who have no connection to the well-being of the neighborhood can be more disruptive than a group of 30. Limiting capacity does not change the concerns about noise or safety issues, and so it would still negatively impact the character of the neighborhood. Finally, as Mr. Giles said, prior to his purchase of the property, we advised him that his planned rental activity would be in violation of the existing covenants, the original ones. His reply was that he disagreed and that he would proceed anyway. He then hosted his first transient guests that very weekend and has continued to do so. As this property is not his primary residence, he's already using the house in the manner he's seeking the exception for today. Given Mr. Giles' expertise in this area, as a realtor and owner of other transient guest properties, we can only assume that these actions were taken with a willing disregard for the rules and zoning that apply. Therefore, even if capacity limits or accommodations could address the concerns, there's no confidence that they'd be followed. The neighborhood would bear the burden of enforcing any limitations, another ongoing additional nuisance. To be upfront with the board, our homeowners association is preparing to take legal action regarding the covenant violations created by Mr. Giles' rental use of the property. We're essentially forced to take this step because we simply need to protect the covenants. The operation of a transient guest house in Albemarle is simply not consistent with the character of the neighborhood, and we ask that you deny this zoning request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward.
Hello, my name's Ian Fox. I live at 7367 Admiral East. I want to give a quick shout out to my wife. She's pregnant, due in a month. She's home with 2 kids. I'll be home soon, honey. Okay. Let that show for the record. My property is directly across from the road from the property being discussed. I'm speaking in opposition to the proposal for special exception due to traffic and noise issues it has and will cause our neighborhood. Our neighborhood was designed and built back in the early 90s. Our road is simple. Narrow width of asphalt, no markings, no curbs, no sidewalks. Our road is very scenic by design. This was purposefully done to create a rural and rustic feel while maintaining a community atmosphere. That scenic design does have some issues. There are at least 8 blind spots along the road. Unfamiliar drivers, by the petitioner's own admission, who are normally out-of-town guests, can be taken off by the narrow width, blind corners, crests, traffic, and residents walking along the road. Currently, we already struggle to handle all the traffic in our neighborhood. Between normal day-to-day movement of the residents, package delivery services, food delivery companies, lawn care, trash, recycling, school buses, and service vehicles, it's not uncommon to see cars that are forced to drive onto the grass to move around one another due to the narrow width of the road. In addition, our residents commonly walk along the road for exercise. We have a good mix of young families with children, empty nesters, and retirees. It's not uncommon to see 2 to 3 families walk along the road during the evening. The added influx of transient guest vehicles, even with a limited amount of 8 guests, isn't consistent with the character of our neighborhood and would move our traffic pattern from a residential style of traffic into a heavy-duty style that our road was never designed to handle. On the subject of noise, we've already had homeowners complain on the amount of noise generated by the guests. On May 17th, Suzanne McConnell, who already submitted a statement, notified the HOA that transient guests staying in the home were being noisy into the early morning. This was only the 2nd week of operation of the property as a rental and has already been causing significant issues for the neighborhood from noise complaints. On the VRBO listing under house rules, it clearly states events are not allowed. However, the petitioner states in the tagline of the listing, this place can be used to host events. The petitioner clearly doesn't respect or follow the rules. I appreciate being given the opportunity to speak. I ask you to reject the special exception request on the grounds of traffic and noise generation to help protect and preserve our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Dr. Christina Hupy, and I am the Abbey Marl HOA treasurer, and I live at 7300 Abbey Marl East. My property is one lot removed from the southeast of the property being discussed. I am speaking in opposition to the special exception due to the noise and safety issues it will cause for our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is a very quiet and safe place with only 17 homes. There's a very limited number of people entering and exiting the neighborhood. My husband, Dr. Hupy, and I moved to West Lafayette in 2018. We purposely chose the Abbey Marl neighborhood because of the character of the neighborhood, quiet and safe. We have 2 daughters, 10 and 13, and we purposely avoided the neighborhoods near the university because we wanted a location where we could have quiet and know that our girls are safe. We both travel for work often, and our girls are in competitive sports. We have to leave our older daughter home alone for a few hours, especially if one of us is out of town. We both strongly feel that a transient guest house in Abbey Marl is not consistent with the character of the neighborhood and will decrease the safety and increase the noise. In fact, this has already occurred. On Friday, May 21st, a large group of guests arrived at the property being discussed. I estimate 10 or so SUVs and 20 plus guests that were mainly male and likely in their 20 to 30 year range and hosted an outdoor party. The noise, music, and shouting was loud enough that I heard it while gardening at various locations around my 3.5 acre lot. Note that there is an open lot between my property and the property being discussed. My daughters were outside with me and heard inappropriate language. It continued late into the night. At the time, my husband was out of town and I had to leave my older daughter home Sunday while I attended an early morning sporting event in Indianapolis. I was uneasy leaving her home with a large group of male strangers next door. My daughter's chore for the day was to mow our lot and the open lot next door as a favor to the neighbor there. She called me in Indianapolis to let me know that she was afraid to go out front and mow because there was a large group of ruckus men in the front yard. I was anxious all weekend with a large group of strangers there, and my two girls were playing as they were playing on their bikes and skateboards in the neighborhood. The property is advertised as a spa that is great for events and is written in a way that encourages these activities. Therefore, we can regularly expect groups of 30 plus people coming into the neighborhood with the intention of having a party. Even with smaller groups, such as 8 people, there's nothing to prevent them from inviting 22 more people over. It's likely they'll be outside and gathering and making noise. The important part is that there will be no homeowner in attendance at these events, and the actual homeowner has likely never met these people and has just admitted that they're coming from out of state. We have no idea who these people are, and literally no one is in charge while they're there. This property is being marketed specifically as a place for these events, not for families to enjoy quietly. Given that these activities are already occurring outside of the Abbey Merrill covenants and zoning ordinance, we can expect that these activities do not respect we can expect that future activities do not respect the character of the neighborhood, and they will continue. If the owner doesn't follow the rules now, we can only expect this going forward. As a full-time resident with 2 daughters, I should not have to be concerned on a regular basis of the safety of my girls because large groups of different unknown individuals are regularly having parties right next door to my house. Additionally, I moved here because it's quiet and I like to be outside. I do not want my summer and falls disrupted by loud, continuous parties. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition. And do you have a rebuttal? Please come forward. Mr. Giles?
Let me get my address again.
No.
Okay. The first week I moved in, I saw that one of the neighbors was having a party as well, but I didn't complain because it's not my right to do so. I don't know why they want to complain about it. I mean, they had 8 to 10 people in the driveway when I pulled in the neighborhood. Not sure why it's okay for them and not okay for the new guy in town. It seems a little odd to me. They're going to have family get-togethers. They're going to have big parties too. I guarantee you they've had family reunions at their house. They're dead set against it before the idea even happened. So it seems a little bit unfair, and I try to respect people. And yes, I know what the gentleman is saying. I did put no parties, so I don't have to host a lot of parties. But if somebody wants to have this 8-year-old's birthday party with 8 kids, am I going to say no? No, I won't. There's nothing wrong with that. I just had somebody ask me about it today. 8 kids giggling out in the backyard. Well, I don't know what's wrong with that. As far as the 8 people in the septic, I mean, if it was something that was an issue, I could either drop it to 8 or get a bigger septic, either one. Both are options. As far as following the rules, I do follow the rules. They have a different interpretation of them right now, obviously, which we'll have to get through with attorneys from the sounds of it. But I have followed every rule that I've went to the zoning office. I mean, you can ask him probably 5, 6 times since I started looking into buying the house. I've dotted every I, crossed every T I could possibly think of to try and do this the right way. That's because I didn't want to get into a situation like this. That's why I filed the exception before I bought the house. It just doesn't seems like they had the idea set from the beginning. I mean, my daughter's out playing with me in the front yard too, just like theirs are.
Okay.
Trying to think if there's anything else I need to comment on. Yeah, I mean, there's people in the neighborhood that have also been renting their houses out, so trying to stop me from doing mine seems a little tacky. I know for a fact I was told by the real estate agent that sold me the house that there's people in the neighborhood that rent their house out. But now that I'm trying to do it the right way and go through the zoning office, now I'm shut down, trying to get shut down. Just doesn't seem, I don't know. Seems a little tacky, that's all. I think that's all I got though. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments from the board?
Steve, I have a question, and
Sure.
for
Go ahead, Gary.
clarification, and maybe it was already mentioned. Is Abbey Morrow a private road or a public street? It may have been
It's my understanding it's private.
private road. Okay. And there was some mention about what is allowed under the current ordinance. You can still, I guess we wrote that ordinance, you can still have some rental, but it's limited on numbers under the current Plan Commission ordinance. I don't know if anybody has that at hand.
Right. You know, Ryan?
What's allowed under the current ordinance? You know, we passed an ordinance where you can get so many days of renting your house out without getting a special exception. Do you know those numbers right off? Maybe Casey does. He's raising his hand.
The way we wrote the ordinance, there are 3 types of transient.
You need your mic on. Yeah,
Sorry, I thought I-
Still not on.
still not on.
There you go.
There we go, sorry. The way we wrote the ordinance, there are 3 types of transient guest rentals. One is I live in my house and I'm going to rent out a bedroom or 2 bedrooms for a certain time period. The second type was mainly for like Purdue professors on sabbatical. So I live in that house, but I'm going to be gone for a month or 2 and I'm going to rent it out while I'm gone. And then the third type is I don't live there, I don't have any plan to live there, and I'm going to rent it out on Airbnb or whatever.
Okay, that answers the question. Thank you. And I think if it's least more than 30 days, then you're kind of not under any of those guidelines. You're under
I think that's right. I can look it up real quick.
I think you're understanding.
It's
Okay,
my understanding that we can't regulate month to month.
right. If it's over 30
But
days.
if it's less than a month, then if it's owner occupied, but you're gone for periods of time, then you can rent it out for a limited number of days.
Got it. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
That was my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
The number of days is 60.
Yeah.
And then one other thing that I believe I was told that this homeowner association is voluntary. I don't know if
That's
plays into-
something
I was
we
told.
don't consider
Okay.
homeowners association rules. That's between, rules are
Gotcha.
between private citizens.
Yeah, just thought I'd add that to it too.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no other questions, we have a ballot.
Okay, I have 6 ballots, five of them physically present here and 1 virtual. The written ballots are 5 to deny, and the virtual ballot is the 1 to deny. So the vote is 6-0 for denial.
So the special exception is denied, and we'll hear the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2054, Reith Riley Construction Company Incorporated. Petitioners requesting a variance to allow a 15-foot setback from the minimum requirement of 25 feet from O'Farrell Road to build a 32-foot by 33.5-foot addition to their existing office in an I3 zone. The property is located at 3425 O'Farrell Road, Fairfield, Longlois Reserve, East Half, 23-4, UZO 2-23-7.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second.
Do I do the slideshow? Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, you got it. Ryan?
So used to the laptop. Okay. Well, as you can see, our zoning map, we've got a lot of heavy industrial I3 zoning. We have R1B to the south, R1 to the east. Of course, we have a floodplain off to the northeast and north. Go ahead and zoom in here. O'Farrell Road was a private road at one point, but has since become public. This property, as you can see in its expanse, contains the Reith Riley construction business. And then this is the particular site in question. O'Farrell Road is a local road according to thoroughfare plan, as you can imagine, given its termination on this property. Water and sewer, of course, are available to serve the site. The AO does have some latitude with respect to determining the buffering situation there as specified in the staff report. Proposed site plan, we'll go ahead to that. Maybe you could flip that around for me. No? That's correct. Okay. All right. All right. Use your imagination. This will work. Proposed site plan shows 15-foot setback to build a 1,136 square foot addition. And porch ramp installation to the existing office structure, which is about 25 square feet. The site overall has two structures. The 7,000 square foot storage building, and then of course the aforementioned office. The existing office building likely was constructed with a 21 foot setback when O'Farrell was a private road. Back then the setback would have only been 6 feet. Since it's gone public, that has changed the equation, and so UZO considers existing building conforming because of the change in right-of-way status from private to public. And go ahead and take a look at the site here. Here's the entrance and then our site. There we go. We'll leave it on that. Well, I was wondering. So this proposal is going to require sort of an upgrade to a Class 1 structure per the building code, and that's going to include ADA safety-related issues. Obviously, this is not a self-imposed situation. This is coming from the outside. So the tests will follow this logic. So on May 19th, the APC determined the variance requested is not a use variance. Staff sees no injury to public health, safety, and general welfare. Use and value of adjacent properties will not be affected in a negatively adverse manner. This is a situation that is not common to other properties in the same zoning district. This is a unique situation. You have a public road that terminates into the property. And you have the situation of the building code matter that is generating this request. So it is in staff's opinion that the terms of the zoning ordinance, and in this case, the building code as a result of what the zoning ordinance requires, will result in an unusual and necessary hardship. And the hardship is not self-imposed for the reasons I just explained. And the variance request does provide the minimum relief. So staff in this case is recommending approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Hello, I'm Brian Garrett with Reith Riley Construction, 3425 O'Farrell Road. I don't have a whole lot to add. He explained it pretty well. We outgrew this facility a few years ago. We've been looking to expand a little bit. So we're adding a conference room and 2 offices. And with the ADA requirements, we got to have a porch and correct slopes. So again, we're at the end of this road. We own the property to the right, which would be, I guess, east, and to the south. And then we also own the property where our asphalt plant sits on. We're the last building back there. There's no one back there. We've been there. I think we've owned the property for 22 years, and we bought Kaiser & Kaiser, who was there for probably another 25 years. So we've been back there for quite a while. I don't think this really affects anybody. And again, our building actually won't be any closer to the road. It's just the porch and the ADA requirements. So we're expanding to the west. So questions for me? Anything I need to expand upon?
I think you're fine for now.
All right.
If we have questions, we'll ask later.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? And I did forget social media on the last case. I hope
there was none, of course.
I was hoping you'd bring it up if there was.
Yeah, I will.
People had plenty of time to respond.
I'll let you.
So if anyone on social media is listening on social media, please go ahead and respond at this time or comment at this time. Any questions or comments from the board? And we'll give it just a little more time for social media.
We have no further comments on social media.
Thank you, Ryan. We have a ballot.
All right, all the votes, all the ballots have been cast. Virtually one in favor of granting, and the physical ballots are 5 in favor of granting, so the total vote is 6 to grant, 0 to deny.
The variance has been granted, and we'll hear the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2055, Tanya Lowry. Petitioners are requesting a variance to allow a 20-foot setback from the minimum requirement of 60 feet from I-65 to build a 3,830 square foot barn in an R1 zone. The property is located at 3115 East, 200 North, Fairfield 14 Northwest, 23-4, UZO 2-1-7.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
All right, here, if you'll look at the location map, you'll see this site exists south of 200 North, just west of I-65. It's the sixth house on the lane, the last house on the lane. You probably wouldn't know the house was there if you were driving by. It's hard to, you can't see any other structures other than the one that really sits up on the road. The petitioner is requesting a variance to allow a 20-foot setback from the requirement of 60 feet from I-65 to build a 3,840 square foot barn in the R1 zone. The property, which contains a single family home, is located at 3115 East 200 North. And just a note here on the staff comments where it says the petitioner would like to build a 38 by 40, it should be a 48 by 80 square dimensions. That is still the same amount of square footage that's mentioned in the request, just dimensions were transposed improperly. So petitioner would like to build a 48 by 80 square foot pole building in front of the existing structures. Petitioner has told staff they intend to use the intended use for the structure is personal storage, parking for their existing structures. Currently on site, there are 3 outbuildings and a single family home. The closest existing structure to the interstate right of way is 75 feet. Staff cannot support this request because there are currently 3 outbuildings on site in addition to the single family home. And staff realizes that between the existing structures, well, septic, and triangular shape of the property and elevation change, this could be the only place for a new structure, but staff cannot argue the need for an additional outbuilding. There may be practical difficulties in building the proposed barn, but there is no hardship, which is what our staff's recommendation is based off of for a variance.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Hi, my name is Tanya Lowry, address 3115 East, 200 North. The proposed barn, how do I use this as like a clicker to show you things? Yes. It doesn't work.
Yeah, if you hold it down and then point to the screen.
Flashing. Okay, I'll
Do you want this slide?
Can I just explain to you guys while you're the other slide? This one. Oh. Okay, that one's way out there. This one's perfect.
Is this better? All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so currently, if you look, the southern structure, that's our single family residence. Correct, right there. Okay, now to my left or the west, that is a 24 by 40 garage. It only has a 7-foot door. My husband does lawn care and snow removal. We currently have 2 trucks and 2 trailers. We also have, that's just for his stuff. So what we're asking for is to get rid of the carport, which is the northernmost structure. It is 20, I'm not exactly sure on its dimensions. I'm not even gonna guess. It's not big enough. It currently can hold 2 of our trailers, but no vehicles. So if we have a hailstorm, that's his 2 work vehicles and my 2 vehicles all destroyed basically. So what we're asking for is to remove the carport and put up the barn, which we do feel is just the size that we need in order to house what we already have on the property that we're trying to just get inside. That's all I have. I mean, actually, so to the east is all septic fingers. We can't do anything behind the house because of the septic. And everything southern is floodplain. So really that is the only spot for us to put a building of that size. If we went further north, we'd be even closer and there would be a ton of tree removal that would have to be done, which there are some trees that'll have to come down for what we're requesting now, but it's manageable. It's not the whole woods.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? And we'll go ahead and ask for comment on social media. If you want to have a minute, well, if we have any questions here on the board, any questions or comments? I guess I do have a question. Is the carport one of the buildings that was considered here? I mean, if it's coming down, I mean, as far as, I mean, staff knew that that carport was coming down, correct?
May I?
Come on up, Larry.
Staff was not aware that the cardboard, we thought it was just fitting in to the location based off of the site plan. I don't know that that discussion took place on question on whether or not the carport was coming down as part of our recommendation, but I don't know that it would change our recommendation at all.
Okay, thank you.
Larry, there would still be a building permit issued. And is there any reason that a building permit would be granted or withheld depending on whether or not that structure came down? It's not a zoning question, it's more of a building commissioner question. Maybe that's unfair to ask you that, but if this went forward and then they presented that to the building commissioner and they decided they weren't going to take it down, is that going to prevent a building permit from being issued if they change their mind?
They would probably just have to meet fire separation and any building code separations.
Okay.
And
thank you.
It's my understanding that the petitioner could commit to that voluntarily. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So, but that would be up to you if you wanted to commit to the carport coming down.
Okay, so in order for my husband to get his truck and trailer into the proposed barn, right now he has to do this like 7-point turnaround thing to get into the carport. The carport has to be moved in order to put the barn up because we're proposing placing it halfway where the carport is now. If it came any further forward into the driveway, there's not physically enough room without taking down the fence and infringing on the neighbor's property to turn the vehicle around to get it in. So the carport would have to come down.
And so in essence, you're willing to commit to that, to this board, and that would be used by them in considering whether or not they grant your request. Thank you.
And I think, would she have to sign something on the petition?
The setback, there's no safety concern that this barn's gonna block traffic on 65?
No,
It's just that they're building on
They're
the
just building,
property.
they've got another building going up, and that's one of the reasons that staff feels that.
And that was the interstate actually sits 80 feet further past the fence, past the property line.
And do we need to vote on accepting that?
No, you don't have to vote on accepting that separately. You are basing your vote on
the fact that
commitment is now being
commitment
made
is
in writing. So.
okay. Thank you. We have any comments from social media?
No comment.
Hearing none, we have a ballot.
Okay, I have all ballots have been cast. The virtual vote is to grant. The 5 physical ballots are all to grant, and so the total vote is 6 to grant and 0 to deny.
Variance has been granted. The variance has been granted, and we'll hear the last case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2056 West Lafayette Greenhouse Facility LLC. Petitioners requesting a variance to increase the lot coverage to 36.8% from the minimum requirement of 25% to build a new greenhouse addition in an OR zone. Property is located at 3315 Kent Avenue, West Lafayette, Wabash 01 Southeast 23-5, UZO 2-14-6.
And we'll hear from staff, please. Ryan?
All right. Well, here we are in the Purdue Research Park. Solidly OR everywhere. We had a rezone not too long ago for the Century Apartments that off to the east there. That project is completed. The site in question, go ahead and get into the site there. So you may be familiar with it. It's used by RE Agriculture Incorporated, research development company. Current site, parking standard for this use is 1 space per employee on the largest shift. They just have 6 employees, so they obviously can meet that parking requirement. Plus there are multiple parking agreements with PRF's other sites in the immediate vicinity for any additional parking needed by this particular use. Of course, city utilities are available. There's no buffer yard issue at this point. Let's see, here's our site plan. The petitioner's tenant in RE Agriculture is reconfiguring out its operations and adding laboratory machinery and greenhouse space in a manner to match the existing facility. The lot coverage issue is what we're talking about here. It's a combination of UZO requirements establishing maximum size of the building on its lot, along with its height, setbacks, vegetative cover. The purpose is to assure sufficient light, air, and open space. The OR zone has a suburban type of disposition. It's meant to have more open space. It's the essence of an office park, that there be that open space. So to increase the footprint here, the 25% maximum lot coverage would permit on this nearly 2-acre size lot, would permit a 20,850 square foot building footprint. However, 30,715 is proposed. Staff understands their operations well enough that the need for this expansion should be in its current environment and vicinity, but we simply can't find an ordinance defined hardship with this request. It's the size of the expansion that's driving this. One potential solution we outline in the report here could be to add some land from an adjoining lot to increase the lot area. PRF certainly has plenty in the vicinity to spare potentially. And that could eliminate the need for the variance altogether. So the APC at its May 19th hearing determined the variance requested is not a use variance. And as far as the test, staff believes that the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, general welfare of the community, will not substantially affect properties adjacent in a negative manner. The terms applied in this case from the UZO is very common to any other OR property. There's nothing particularly unusual about this site that would necessitate a variance. And strict applications of the ZO will not result in an unusual or unnecessary hardship. So it's staff's final determination that the hardship is self-imposed. It's simply the desire to cover more of the lot with building is driving this. So therefore staff cannot find a hardship. So there is no minimum relief, so we are recommending denial. be happy to answer any questions. Well, I think we may have some photographs for those that are not familiar with the site. All right. There's a particular slide you want me to stay on, let me know.
I keep forgetting to turn that thing on.
Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Marianne Owen. I'm from the law firm of Stewart and Brannigan. I'm here on behalf of West Lafayette Greenhouse Facilities, LLC. It is marvelous to see everyone. It's been a while since I've gotten to see you, so this is a pleasure on my part. This evening, I'm here to make the request for a variance that from the maximum coverage on a lot to permit the construction of an extension of this existing facility in an OR zone. The extension would take the existing maximum coverage of the lot to 36.8% in a zoning district that allows 25% coverage. This evening, I'd like to talk a bit with you and then step aside and let a few other persons make some comments, and then I'd like to come back and end my comments with you. Simply said, this is one of those exciting, unique projects that we have in our community. We're expanding this existing research and development facility to allow for the testing of a greater quantity of plants than we currently have in this existing greenhouse. The user of the facility, as has just been stated, is Inari. It's a statewide and actually nationally known company that is based in Boston, but the majority of its planned development is currently happening here in Lafayette, in West Lafayette in particular. Inari specializes in sustainability. It focuses its work on reducing the land, the water, and other inputs to produce food and feed. Inari's work results in crops that give more nutrition to consumers. They're crops that are more resilient to climate change, just like we've had today, and less of an effect on the environment, as well as, shall we say, giving more profits to our growers. So the greenhouses are a critical part of what Inari does. It grows its plants from seedlings to maturity to evaluate them on both a visual and molecular level. And so even if there's small changes in the temperature, that can damage the research project. So the expansion of this existing facility is necessary instead of locating the expansion area of the facility on a separate or another lot. Now, it's also my pleasure to say we mostly agree with what the staff has to say. They described the work being done by Inari extremely well. We agree with many of their comments on the ballot items. The increased area due to the expansion will be used in the same way as the existing facility, not creating any issues in regard to public health and safety or the use and value of the surrounding area. The planned expansion will sit on the lot in a very similar fashion as the other facilities in the area, meeting the setback, green space, parking, and other similar requirements that are under our ordinance as well as under the covenants for the research park. But there is that exception that we have to the staff report, and that's in regard to the hardship. While the area involved is located in an area well served and for research and development, neither the Ross Enterprise Center, which is to the north, nor the property to the south have sufficient area that's available to this particular project. The area to the south, although it is undeveloped, any reduction of area in that particular lot will damage its ability to be used effectively going forward. So this variance before you addresses the petitioner's issue while fitting in with and not damaging the adjacent properties. So we respectfully request your approval of this variance to allow this lot to have a maximum coverage of 36.8%. With that, I will pass it off to others who'd like to speak in favor.
Hello, Jeremy Slater. I am Associate Vice President of Real Estate and Facilities for the Purdue Research Foundation. Also a West Lafayette resident, 5931 Conkright Lane, West Lafayette. So first and foremost, Mary Ann stole a little bit of my thunder, but it is nice to finally see some people face to face and not at a computer screen. First, I'd like to thank the board. Thank you for your time and hearing our petition. The staff report I thoroughly agreed with. I liked the report. There were a couple things that jumped out at me that I wanted to highlight. First and foremost, we're excited. We're excited that Inari continues to grow their business within the Purdue Research Park. And not just the Purdue Research Park, but they continue to grow in our great community. And so it fits, I talk a lot about our mission at the foundation, and obviously our mission is to change the world through technologies, through licenses, patents, those kinds of things. And so to have a private company that wants to continue to do those types of things, as the staff report has announced or written about, is definitely we're in support of. And so the other thing, surrounding uses include a wide range of research and development facilities, which is true. It's a lot of what the Purdue Research Park is. And I also think it's important to highlight, even with this expansion, we're still at a 38% green space coverage for this lot. So thank you for your time, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're representing PRF.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. You like it, it's still an office park.
I'm sorry?
You like the feel, it's still an office park.
Yeah, absolutely. Office park slash, well, it is zoned to OR, so office park slash research is important.
Tom, can you turn on your mic if you're talking?
On number 4, it's a situation that is or is not common to other properties. How is it not common to other properties? I think
We're saying that the ordinance as applied is common.
It is, it said is common.
There's nothing unusual about the property that, about this OR property that differentiates it from another.
Yeah, I think one of the things I kind of laughed about, I guess, is, essentially the way the ordinance is written, we could pave this entire lot and fit within the ordinance, but we can't expand greenhouse space, right? And so kind of made me chuckle a little bit. It is greenhouse space. You'll see kind of the brick building in this image behind is the head house, and what they're focusing on is additional green space, which does, Tom, as you commented, meet the intent of OR. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, speaking in favor. There's no one speaking in favor. Anyone in opposition? And we'll take comments on social media at this time, so we'll have at least a minute.
Ms. Owen may want to.
And Ms. Owen, did you want to?
Why don't we, shall it be after we have a moment for the comments? That's fine. If there are any.
Since you said you wanted to wrap things up.
It's been about 40 seconds, no comments.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I think we've laid out to you why our request is fairly simple, that we're looking to have the maximum coverage of this lot be 36.8%. Expanding this facility is important to our community based on what all Inari is currently doing and anticipates continuing to do in our community and in our state, if not our country. So here to answer any questions that you may have and beyond this.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
I was just going to, Gary Schroeder here, I was going to make a comment that I do agree the staff does make a good argument that it does not meet the ordinance. But, when you look at the green space that's left out there and 25% lot coverage and an OR zone, I don't know, it just seems a little thin to me compared to other commercial zones where you can have more coverage. So I think, in my opinion, there'll be enough green space left afterwards. So I'll support this petition.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, we've got a ballot.
Get Jim's ballot.
All right, all 6 ballots have been cast. The virtual vote was to grant, and 5 of the physical ballots are to grant. So the final vote is 6 in favor of granting and 0 to deny.
Thank you very much.
Variance has been granted. Administrative matters. Yep.
Shall I? Shall I?
We'll let Eric. Yeah.
I don't know if everyone has seen the resolution. I sent it to staff and some others. Was it?
You sent it to everybody.
Okay. What you have in that resolution is, say, 85% a recitation of what the state statute just requires. So you're not making any great leap of anything. All you're saying is, yes, we are going to abide by the state law. Usually you don't do such things because, I promise not to steal is not something you generally have to put in writing. It's in there because in the future, somebody's going to refer to it and go, well, what can we do on an electronic meeting? It's going to all be there. So the first 6 or I think 5 sections relate to what the state law requires. If you read through it, you see that you've got to have at least 50% of the people. So in the future, out of a body of 7, you're going to have 4 people physically present to have any virtual meeting. There's other rules in there that you can see. You can't miss any more than 2 in a row. You can, got to have a break in there where you physically attend. And so there are rules in there that I don't think are overly burdensome based on how I'm seeing this body operating, how I'm seeing the APC operating. And the APC resolution is very similar to yours. APC has a little bit more broad powers, and so theirs is a little bit broader, but it's pure state law. And then at the very end, there are 3 things, and I just dropped those in for suggestions. There are 3 things at the end in the last section, which I believe is section 6. And those would be the kinds of things that you have control over. Those 3 are just dropped in for me because I've seen them, I've read about them, it seems to make sense, but it's totally up to you whether or not you accept them, whether you add to them, whether you throw them all out. The first one, do you have that up on your screen? Yeah, thank you. I did not bring my copy. So the first one, presiding officer must attend in person. Anybody intending to participate needs to notify so that you can figure out whether you're going to have a quorum, because if you have 5 people say, I'm going to be there virtually, the presiding officer will have to say, well, we don't have a quorum then. And 48 hours is totally arbitrary. I don't know whether that's too long, too short. So totally up to you. And the last one, the electronic voting, you really need to be able to say this was a virtual vote, this was a physical vote. It's not a great, it's no burden, quite frankly, because you're doing it anyway. You know exactly who's virtual. But those are some rules. As far as timing, so you have time to think about it, discuss it as you see fit. Right now, we're still under the governor's emergency order. It is through May 31st, so through Monday. If it gets extended, then you got another month where you don't have to do anything, because anything goes electronically as long as we're under the emergency order. My sense is, for the first time since we've been in this pandemic, is that this probably could be the time where the governor says we're not going to extend it. Don't know. We'll just find out, and we'll probably find out when. Friday? I don't really know. So my suggestion is we can wait on this. If the governor lifts the emergency order, the next time we meet, all we have to make sure we have is 4 people physically present, because then we can vote this in, because the law requires that we have a resolution. The other way to do it is you just vote it in right now, and if you think about it and decide you want to change it, you change it by the next meeting. You can change this every meeting, and I'm not suggesting you do, but you can. So 2 options.
ABC approved theirs?
They have not. Nope.
They've not had a meeting since this came
They've not
out.
had a meeting. So what's that?
They've seen it?
Yes, they've seen it same way you have. It was sent out, I think, yesterday or whenever I sent it.
It probably just went out to the president and.
So it's very similar. The only difference is state law. For example, and I'll just give you the example and then move on. If there is going to be a vote on a budget, if there's going to be a vote on reducing personnel, so a substantive meaty item, the state law says if you want your vote to count, you got to be there in person, which is a little odd, truly, I think. I didn't write the law. So if you're going to pass a budget, your virtual vote means nothing. You can't vote virtually on a budget. So you know darn well that when it's a budget hearing, or you're going to reduce staff, or you're going to do a number of other things, you have to be physically present if you want your vote to cast. That's the APC, not you guys. You don't reduce budgets. You don't do anything except sit as a judicial body to make determinations. So 2 possibilities. One, you pass it right now, and then you know you're good to go. If you then think, wait a minute, why'd we do that? You can change it by the next meeting. So that'd be option 1. Second would be you ruminate, consider, and then go at the next meeting. My preference would be you pass it. I'd like a motion if you wanted to pass it. Is that too pushy?
We need a motion and a second to discuss it anyway, technically.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No,
it's not. It's not.
I move, go ahead.
So you move, we pass the resolution?
I move that we hear and discuss it and pass the resolution that the council just discussed.
And your microphone's off, and I'll second that. So you can turn it on if we're going to discuss. So now it's, so I have a motion and a second, so it's on the floor, Steve.
Right. I do have a, couple questions about section 6. I have no issue with the presiding officer being physically present. And if for some reason I couldn't make it, you can always have, Gary preside over the meeting as vice president.
Absolutely.
So that, I don't plan on not making it, but you never know. The B is 48 hours. Are they contacting me or are they actually contacting staff? Because staff's the one that actually is usually the one that does the polling. And usually it's the day before that you send out so it's not really 48 hours.
Well, the presiding office, that's them.
That's
And
just
you can
presiding
certainly
office.
change it to staff. That may
Yeah.
make good sense.
And I was wondering though, is 48 hours reasonable? But that means that you have to, or we either have to the board members either have to take the initiative to say 48 hours before, or staff is going to have to poll on Monday rather than on Tuesday for the Wednesday meeting.
I agree. Eric, are these proposed to be amended to the bylaws? Is that what this is?
I think it would be a smart move to just embed them in the bylaws, absolutely.
And does the board then, you said that they could be changed at any time. Can they be changed? Does the board have the opportunity, like from meeting to meeting, to waive or modify a requirement? So if, for example, you approve a 24-hour grace period and somebody decides 12 hours before the meeting that they need to attend virtually, but they have a good reason, can the board vote that night to say, in this instance, the 12 hours is okay? Or are they bound to that 24-hour rule?
Well, that's a good point, and I probably answered too quickly. Should it be in the bylaws? No, not yet. And I guess not yet because let's see how it works.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Once you put them in the bylaws, your bylaws are a little different than some groups. Bylaws in some groups are like, oh my goodness, we're never going to change it. It's just going to sit there and be just this powerful document. This is a little bit more of a movable document, which is fine. But this, for example, says you got to have 2/3 to change the resolution. I'm not sure you really need that. If you ever decide to put them in the bylaws, which I do think will be a good idea at some point, you can do so. Right now, it's merely a resolution. It's a procedural resolution. And until you say, oh, let's make it part of the bylaws, it's not.
So we need 2/3 for a resolution?
To change bylaws.
Oh, to change bylaws.
To change
Okay,
bylaws. So if we just say, we're passing this resolution, let's give it a couple months, and then, towards the end of the year, say, we've now refined and gotten it the way we like it a lot. Let's just go ahead and put it in the bylaws. Then I think it would make sense to put in the bylaws. But for now, I don't think it should.
Back to my example, let's say that they're approved, they're made part of the bylaws.
Okay.
Let's say it's the 48 hours that you have here in section 6.
Yes.
So down the road in December, somebody decides 24 hours before that they need to do that version. But the rules say 48 hours. Can the board that night?
Nope. Once it's bylaws, it takes 2/3 vote, and there needs to be an announcement at least 5 days before the meeting that you're going to take up a bylaw. Because again, bylaws are, you got the Constitution and then you got bylaws. And again, and that's true. Across the board, with a corporate entity, bylaws are very rarely even looked at because they're not operational like ours are. And I'm not saying ours shouldn't be operational. Because you're a quasi-judicial body, it's important that the public knows what rules are being played here. And if you changed your rules right before a hearing, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. You got to give them more notice. If you were a city council, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. But once you put on that robe of being a judge, I think you have more accountability and making sure everybody understands what the rules are.
If you have a resolution, though, you could do it at the meeting.
Absolutely. If you
But
keep
not
it
in
just
the
as a
bylaws.
resolution, just a rule of procedure. And I do think that's the better way to do it right now until everything settles. And the APC may come up with something you think, well, that was a good idea. We should do that. Well, you go ahead and change it. And then you get it settled. Yeah.
Another example, though, is what happens if someone's planning on attending the meeting, they've got car trouble. So they normally wouldn't be at the meeting, but at the last minute, they could call in virtually and still be at the meeting rather than not. I'd rather somebody attend the meeting virtually as long as we still have a quorum rather than not attend.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something would be a good change, unless, except in emergencies where you would be able to make that change. And again, you can put that in the bylaws, you know, and once you've settled on that, and that does sound like a pretty reasonable thing, as you see and look through all these different, where is that? I'm sorry.
Right there.
I didn't bring my own copy. You've got a lot of things in there that state statute puts in for emergencies, military service. I mean, there's lots of things in there that make exceptions to the usual rule. So it would be smart to do that. So I think that might be a good change.
And I guess, or did you have more comments on that?
Well, yeah, whenever
Go ahead.
whenever it's my turn.
Go ahead.
Okay, Gary here. And is this pretty much driven because the emergency order is going away? And if we're going to hold meetings virtually, we have to have some procedure and voted on.
Absolutely.
What if we decided we weren't going to have virtual meetings? Would this need to be in place?
Yeah, you don't need it at all if you never have a virtual meeting.
Right. So, and obviously the virtual meetings were held because of pandemics, quarantines, public accommodations. And, you know, I'm just thinking, I mean, once we put that in place, it gets pretty messy.
Gets pretty what?
Messy.
Yeah.
Messy to manage and deal with. And I'm almost thinking that we can wait a month. We'll see how next month plays out. We've got an ordinance committee meeting. We've got a plan commission meeting before our meetings, and we can see how the trend is going. Our last plan commission meeting, we did not have any public comment virtually. Everybody was at the meeting.
Yep.
And I'm not sure, maybe we had one person try to attend virtually, and
I think you had one petitioner that.
That was in and out, and I'm not sure that was
And remember,
successful.
this is just members.
Right.
He was there full meeting? Okay.
It's just voting members this applies to.
Just voting members.
So a petitioner can, well, it's up to you if you allow them to appear, but if they called in and said, hey, I couldn't make, can I come in virtually? You can say yes or no at that point. I think it'd be hard to say no, but.
I was thinking if we allowed members to be virtual, we had to allow the public to be virtual.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
You have to allow that comment to come through.
So it's two-way. So I'm just throwing out the idea that we just wait a month. I mean, I think it's good.
There's no harm.
No harm. So
I mean, there's no harm. The only harm would be is 4 people want to stay home for whatever. We have a freak snowstorm.
we always have those issues. You know, I mean, we have those issues.
But I have a feeling we're going to have, you know, a solid majority here physically present. So it probably doesn't matter.
So procedurally, I could make a motion to table that motion.
Absolutely.
To
Procedurally
the
be
next
fine.
meeting.
Well, what's the motion to kill?
Time certain
Time uncertain, okay.
or uncertain, either way, certain or uncertain. So.
Yeah, I don't want to, I think we'll just play it by ear. Next meeting, if it's an issue, we'll
Time
bring it up.
uncertain.
If it's not, we won't bring it up. I just think another month will help us.
Before you do that, I do have one other question
Yeah,
for Eric.
sure.
For C, it says during an electronic meeting, all votes shall be by roll call, so the identity and vote of each member is documented.
Yes, that is a hard statutory requirement.
Okay.
And I think it's a little overkill, quite frankly, because it says a roll call vote. So what that seems to indicate is you have to call the names every time. Well, we don't do that at all. We have something better than that. We have written ballots. So the intention is so that you know who voted. And you know that, well, that person voted virtually and that person didn't. And so that's why I put it in that matter. As long as you know how the votes are, and you guys are doing them by ballot with signatures, then you're fine. The purpose, they don't want to voice vote and then they move on and nobody in the room knew who was really voting, and you know somebody was virtual and maybe they heard a voice but didn't know who it was. The public has a right to know who's voting and how they're voting in a public meeting. The way we work, we do it by written ballot anyway. So
okay, as long as that's I noticed tonight you did not do a roll call vote.
I'm kind of weaving through the state statute, which I don't think is particularly well crafted. It's a shock, I realize.
And
might not do a great job down there all the time.
If we table this till next time, then will we have to listen to you weave through?
You know, what I will do is I will put together a PowerPoint of at least an hour.
From Robert's rules, can he withdraw his motion?
Or tabling, it's fine.
You can
either
actually
way.
withdraw your second.
Yeah.
I can withdraw my second?
Yeah,
I
you can
withdraw
withdraw
my
your
second.
second, and then he can.
You don't even have a second anymore.
Yeah, so.
So I'm gonna hear your dog and pony show on this one more time.
You want to withdraw
Let me know
your
when.
motion?
I don't want to, but.
It actually
It doesn't
fails for
matter,
lack of a
does it?
second,
No.
so.
Procedurally, you should withdraw it
Yeah.
and we can bring it up next time.
Procedurally, I'd like to withdraw my motion to approve.
There we go.
Done.
I think another month will
You need
shed a
mic
lot
on.
of light
Makes
on what's
sense.
going on.
There'll be a lot of water passing over the dam by then. You're right.
new.
I think it's good to be ahead like you did. We're ahead of the curve.
Ahead of the
Yeah.
curve. You're the first ones that I've been associated with that are working on it, so that's good.
Any other administrative matters? Unless any member has an objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority decision of the board to be the collective findings of the board in support of the decision of the board. Hearing none, it is so ordered, and I'll take the last motion.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Tom, did you want any more on that state statute?
It
seemed like you do.
I will just get you at the next one.
Yeah, we should just get together out of your hearing, right? That sounds fair.
Something I did